Welcome to another edition of the Here We Go podcast. I am your host, Trent Ging, coming to you on a Saturday episode. This week's been a bit of a mess for me, trying to get these recordings and missed both live streams due to different circumstances. One on my end, one on Colin's end. So just wanted to get an extra recording out today just to talk about some of the thoughts that I didn't get to talk about throughout the week or after we saw the Thursday night game. One of the things that continues to be a hot topic is the trap game. Was this a trap game? Well, I cited these statistics just the other day. How can you consider this a trap game when we have continuously lost in Cleveland? How can you consider this a trap game when Mike Tomlin's record on Thursday Night Football is so bad? How could you consider this a trap game when, number one, it's a divisional game? These games are always competitive. It never fails. If this was a game on a Sunday in Cleveland, or I'm sorry, in Pittsburgh instead of Cleveland, where we had had a full week to prepare like normal, and everything was still the same coming in, the 8-2 versus the 2-8, then I could look a little bit differently at the trap idea. But to me, and I said this in the recording for the Ravens game, these are AFC North divisional games. You take all of the statistics and all of the records and you crumple them up into a little ball and you throw them in the trash can. It doesn't matter. These games are going to be competitive. There are real feuds and dislike for each other. Myles Garrett was very motivated by TJ Watt snubbing the Defensive Player of the Year award ceremony. In the same type of way that Patrick Queen was very motivated by the Ravens not even offering him a contract. We got to see Patrick Queen go off against the Ravens. And similarly, we got to watch Myles Garrett go off against the Pittsburgh Steelers. This Browns team has been talked about as being a joke, how terrible they are this year, and Deshaun Watson, the whole saga with him. These guys have got to be tired of hearing this. They get Nick Chubb back. They're working him back into the fold and into the mix of things. And I'm not certain that he's 100% himself yet. But even at 80%, that dude's still better than most of the guys in the NFL. One of the things I wanted to talk about pregame, I had it on my sheet ready to go, was which version of Jameis Winston were we going to get? Or are we going to get the guy who throws for $150 and has 3 turnovers? Or are we going to get the guy who throws for 300 with no turnovers? And quite honestly, we got a mix of the two. And don't get me wrong, for everybody who's nitpicking these two quarterbacks and mistakes that were made or throws that weren't perfect and things like that, I thought both of them played relatively well considering the conditions. There were some passes from each guy that you could say, yeah, this could have been placed a little differently. Of course, the Jameis interception was pretty bad. I mean, that was just a terrible interception on his part. But I thought both guys handled the elements relatively well. Jameis got his team moving down the field when he needed it. Big throw to a couple different tight ends that aren't their regular guys. They weren't David Njoku, which was another guy I planned on talking about as a guy that we, quite frankly, have really struggled to stop. If you were to win into this game saying, here's our keys to victory, win the turnover battle, stop Nick Chubb, keep David Njoku in check, defensively, I think you'd have felt pretty good. Then you throw on top of this that the Cleveland Browns were 1 for 10 on third down. So people talking about how poorly this defense played, they were 1 for 10 on third down. The problem wasn't third down. The problem was we didn't get enough pressure on third down. So they were still completing passes and then going for it on fourth down, which was an obvious issue. I think they ended up 4 for 4 on the game. But if you would have read the numbers, we had 1 punt in the entire game. Cleveland was 1 for 10. They had 3 turnovers. Nick Chubb held to 54 yards. David Njoku basically irrelevant. I think you would have walked away from this saying, oh, yeah, we won that game easy. That's not what happened. That is not what happened. So I think that the idea of this being a trap game is really silly. The games last year where we talked about the Arizona Cardinals and we talked about the New England Patriots, and like those were trap game type losses because they were bad teams, but they're also bad teams you're not playing all the time and you're not familiar with. How can you call a divisional rival, let alone just a divisional foe, a trap game? We all know each other way too well. This Browns roster, in most part, yes, injuries have played a factor. It's largely the same roster they had last year. We know them very well. They know us very well. And in games like this, it usually comes down to who finds a way to win, who's more physical, who's more aggressive. And it felt like Cleveland just played with more of a chip on their shoulder. They got the crowd behind them. And they tried to throw it away at the end. But Pittsburgh was trying just as hard to throw this game away. Coaching decisions and play calling absolutely play a huge factor in this game. You know, you have a big moment, a Hail Mary, and you got your best player, George Pickens, who's literally fighting with Greg Newsome. Dude, what the hell are you doing? Go try to catch the ball. You are the only option outside of Pat Freiermuth or Mike Williams. But you are the obvious option to go try to get that ball. And you're hand fighting with the dude like it. What were they doing? I don't understand what either of those players were doing in that situation, to be perfectly honest with you. That should have been a penalty, at least offsetting penalties, but somebody should have been flagged. And for neither guy to be flagged as they're literally fighting through the back of the end zone. I mean, these guys were fighting cleared like the 5-yard line from what I saw. all the way through the end zone, all the way to the back padding. That's not going to help your team win. And then you're saying, the elements. That's why they're a bad team. Dude, it takes some ownership. You did not play well. You were not the factor that the Pittsburgh Steelers needed you to be. You were not the number one receiver that we expect you to be, the top 10 type receiver. You were crying about contact. Well, guess what? They were letting it go. Play through it. Quit crying. I don't want to hear excuses about the weather because guess what? Their guys played through the weather too. I hate the excuse that, the weather played a factor. Were both teams in the same weather, or did the snow only come down when Pittsburgh had the ball? That's not an excuse. The officiating was horrendous. Horrendous. I honestly do think George has an argument to be made that both of those calls were pass interference. Getting his mouthpiece ripped off of his face mask should have been a more severe penalty than just a 5-yard type thing and whatever. And as I just said, yeah, I definitely think he and Greg Newsome either should have had offsetting penalties and they just replay that down, or Greg Newsome was initiating contact and he should have had a DPI. We should have had the ball down around the 5-yard line. But that's not what happened. Nick Herbig was held on the Jameis Winston touchdown. If that touchdown doesn't happen, that game doesn't go the way it goes. It wasn't called. Here's a couple things to think about. The Cleveland Browns were double and triple teaming TJ Watt all game long. Almost every single snap. How many times did Terrell Austin try to move him around? Because Cleveland went into every play like, okay, here's 90. Here's where he's going to be. Here's where we're going to send our help. Move him. Don't let them go into the play just knowing where he's going and where he's going to be and how to stop him. Move him around. That is horrendous coaching. In a game where you're not getting a lot of pass rush, this was basically Nick Herbig or bust all game long with pressure. Now, and I'm just talking about, I'm just talking about 4-man pressure here. Of course, we saw Landon Roberts come up the middle on a blitz, and he gets there to pressure Jameis Winston. We see Patrick Queen firing through on a blitz, and he's getting there. Yeah, they were running some blitzes that were getting pressure, but our 4-man front should have been winning the day, but it didn't. It didn't win. And so when Nick Herbig is the only threat, because you've completely neutralized the best defensive player on the planet with 2 to 3 guys, and they were double teaming him and still chipping or leaving the third guy in to block for him. They're not even looking at Nick Herbig. So Jameis knows where the pressure is coming from. It's not a question. Is the blitz coming? No? Okay. Let me just make sure 51 doesn't get here. And that was all he had to worry about. Austin didn't do anything to change that. You've got to move TJ Watt around. You cannot let a team just go to the same spot every single time to slow him down or stop him completely. The one area of defensive football that I do think Myles Garrett is built to be better than TJ Watt is to face double teams. He's got 30-something pounds on TJ Watt. He can handle and absorb those better than TJ can. When you get guys, two guys who weigh more than TJ Watt lined up blocking him, he's not going to win those reps very often. That's not who he is. What helps him out is when a defense has to worry about more than just, or an offense, sorry, has to worry about more on this defense than just TJ Watt. That wasn't the case. And Austin did nothing to change it. That's bad coaching. The secondary, huge gaping holes that allowed guys like Jerry Jeudy, who, I mean, this guy had the game of his life. I mean, he's a talented guy, but he's done nothing in the NFL. They let him go off. Let backup tight ends eat downfield. Straight up seams like no one was there. No one was within 5 yards of these pass attempts. That tells me when Jameis Winston's picking you apart like that, you're not changing anything up. You're not doing anything that he hasn't seen before. That's bad coaching. When Russ is cooking, and he's in a groove, and he's in a momentum, and he's found Pat Freiermuth for big yardage. He's found Calvin Austin for big yardage. He's found Van Jefferson for big yardage, all in the first half. And then you go run, pass, run, punt. Like, I mean, what are we doing? Actually, I think that sequence was actually the 4-down turnover on downs on 4th down. I might be mistaken. So I think it was run, pass, which was the check down, and then the run on 4th down that we failed. So, listen, that's terrible coaching. If your quarterback's hot, give him the freaking ball. He's a 13-year veteran. He's played at a high level in this league. You supposedly trust him. You brought him here to elevate your team. And then you hand the ball off when we're averaging 3 yards a carry. At the time, I think we were actually averaging 2.5 yards a carry. That's bad coaching. 3rd down and 4. You bring in Justin Fields. You have this package of plays for him. A 1st down takes you so much closer to sealing this game up and getting out of here with a win. And you call a 40-yard bomb under 3 minutes. What the hell are we doing? Make Cleveland use a timeout. Or if they don't want to use a timeout, let it run down to the 2-minute warning. Run the ball. There's times it's okay to go for the win, but was a 40-yard bomb against man-to-man coverage when George hasn't beat that coverage downfield almost all game? Is that the best time to call that play? I'd have been fine with them trying to run some kind of a quick slant when the box is stacked so George is one-on-one and all he has to do is get inside the DB. I'm okay with that play call. But a 40-yard bomb, which is a low percentage throw and catch, against a team that's been a very good secondary for years, seems to be just absolutely stupid. That's bad coaching. Mike Tomlin, not using a timeout, letting the clock run all the way down in the first half. To save it for what? What were you saving it for? We got the ball back with 40 seconds left. If it was anybody but Russell Wilson in the game, you'd have kneeled the ball and taken it to half anyway. But we have no time. It limits what play calls you can call. And then we still take a sack to end the half. That's bad. That's bad coaching. I'm just saying. Now I'll say this: the 3rd and 7, take the penalty and put them at 4th and 2 versus push them back. I was on the fence about it, but I really actually don't mind that call. Push them back. If they don't convert there and they try a field goal, it is a longer field goal. And I think the reason I'm okay with that call is we couldn't stop them within 2 yards anyway. So what did it matter? Hell, they probably just turn around and hand the ball to Nick Chubb. He's going to get the 2 yards. They did all game. They won the trenches pretty consistently throughout the game. And they probably would have won it there too. So I was okay making Jameis throw the ball. Hope he creates another turnover, a bad throw, and then you're at 4th and 7 and makes it much more difficult to go for it in that scenario. So you're going to kick that field goal to try to get the lead back. Their kicker's not been good. I was okay with that play call. I can't knock Tomlin for that. I know a lot of people are. I didn't think that was an egregious call. But ladies and gentlemen, there were way more things happening in this game than it being a, quote, trap game. I don't believe that was a trap game. I think that was AFC North football. Did the elements help Cleveland? Yeah, I definitely think they do. Because it narrowed the game down to who can win in the trenches, and they were winning in the trenches. Do I still think we're the better football team? Absolutely, I think we're the better football team. But let's get off the narrative that this was a trap game. It was not a trap game. It was just AFC North football, where literally any given Sunday, any team can win in this division. And for all of you out there who are currently saying, and I'm seeing a lot of this, oh, well, we're definitely not a Super Bowl contender now. We got beat by the Browns. We're not a Super Bowl contender. No way. No way. This team's got major flaws and major problems now. Name your best 3 AFC teams. I guarantee you the majority of Steeler fans put the Baltimore Ravens in there as the top 3 team. Guess who got beat by Cleveland in perfect conditions? The Baltimore Ravens. Why? Because it's AFC North football. It happens. 2 of the 3 games Cleveland has won have been the Steelers and the Ravens. Throw the records out the window when you see AFC North football, for the love of God. The Steelers are right in the thick of things. We are still number 1 in our division right now. We have a very meaningful game coming up against Cincinnati. And if we win that game, all is right in the world again. So let's quit overreacting, calling this the Tomlin trap game, and fire Tomlin at 8-3. Like, get real. Yes, Tomlin is 8-3. Fire him. He had a couple of controversial decisions in a game where it was a snow globe. People got to get a grip, because I mean, like, it's comical. It's actually comical to watch the things that people come up with. I think the trap game narrative is 100% false in this situation. Again, if you want to argue about like last year's, the Arizonas and the New Englands and things, I'm with you on those, because they're unfamiliar foes. You can't call an AFC North game a trap game. It doesn't exist. No game in the AFC. I don't care if Cleveland was 0-16 and we lost to that team. It's still the AFC North. It's not a trap game. So let me know what you think in the comments. As always, like, share, subscribe. Looking forward to hearing what you think about how I view this. And I hope you all have a great weekend. We'll get back to normal routine starting next week. Have a good one.